Good morning, guys, and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name is Judie Sedrick, and every week we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And I tell you, the world continues to be an ever-moving target, both on the business world and in the home life. And we're going to jump into that. I have a phenomenal guest with me today. Hey, how are you, Caleb? How good to have you along.
I'm so glad to be here, man. This is awesome. I know I look like I'm 12, but this is good.
So Caleb is a good friend of mine. We actually got connected about a year ago, and he started a little company called Success Quest with the idea that he would interview and host events and talk about what it takes and share the process of success with people, both from their insight, but also yours in trying to build a business. So that's how you and I got connected. So thank you very much for joining me. And yes, he does look like he's 12.
It's funny because I did a podcast the other day and he was like, wait, how old are you? I was like, I'm 26. Like, you look like you're 13 and you have like a kid already and you have another one on the way. Like, what's going on?
I know. And that's the way I was until I hit about 35. I mean, it's funny because when I got married, I mean, literally when I got married when I was almost 24.
Wow.
And I still was wearing kids clothing. I was wearing
my God.
20 shirt. I was wearing 27-inch waist pants.
Holy crap, you were small.
Oh, dude, I was a little guy. So
that's crazy.
And I had a little man complex too, so that didn't help.
But see, now you got the burly beard. It works.
Yeah, now I'm all man style. So
Yeah.
at least I haven't lost my hair, so that's good. So,
that is good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. You know, it's interesting because, this podcast has really provided great opportunities for me, not only to explore, my experience with my dad, but also my experience with my kids. And, as I've been interviewing people, I mean, I've had some phenomenal guests, and I would say they've been more seasoned fathers, right? So, but they've also been more across the board. Some have had very young kids. Some have, like me, most of their kids are almost grown. And here you are. I mean, You've been married how many years now?
4 years.
Almost 4 years. And you have one boy.
Yeah, one boy. He's almost 2. And then I got a little one in the womb currently.
Got one baking in the oven.
Yep.
So let's talk about that experience of you and your wife first having your first one. And then let's talk about what it's like in anticipation of the second one.
Love it. Well, first off, it's an honor to be here, Jody. I highly respect you and revere you as just someone who's been able to inspire me. I love seeing your stuff on social media. I love the people you talk with. Your message is awesome. So, being a father, man, it's funny too, because even right now, it's hard to believe that I really am like a father figure, I just feel so young sometimes. And I look at this kid and I'm like, I feel like I'm just changing this random dude's diaper, It's just kind of, but I remember at the beginning, when Vanessa was first pregnant, like I was just so excited. Like I was so naive. I was like, this is going to be beautiful all the time. It's going to be fun. And then I remember in the hospital, when baby's being born, right? And it was a whirlwind of experiences because he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. We had to get a C-section really quickly, it's awesome that we can do that and save our kid from a traumatic experience, obviously. And they pulled that little baby out, and I was just like, wow, like we did this? Like, is this a thing? Like, this is crazy. I just had such a hard time grasping that. But I think in that moment I realized like I have more responsibility now. It's amazing to be a father because you just feel so much more love for people. I feel like now I look at other kids running around, I'm like, gosh, you're the cutest darn thing. Like it's weird. I don't understand. I don't know how to explain it.
So how has it been for you and your wife? Because it's a big change going from just young married couple to all of a sudden having a new baby that's, taking almost all of your time, if not all of the time. Now, how was that transition for you and Vanessa?
Yeah, it was the dynamic is totally different. And at the time, I was going to nursing school, and she had already finished her bachelor's degree in chemistry, so she was working in Salt Lake City at a genetic place. They do gene studies and stuff, and she was a genetic counselor, or not a genetic counselor. What was she? I can't even remember anymore. But it was awesome. She was working. She was making good money. I was focusing on school, and so then all of a sudden we have this baby, right? And it's like, whoa, we can't be doing all of these things. It's really hard. And it really affected my schooling. So we were like trying to balance how we were going to do that, how I was going to continue to go to school while she could continue to go to work. It was crazy, but I eventually became a stay-at-home dad because we figured that was the best option. I mean, she already had her bachelor's in chemistry. She's making good money. And so our roles, I guess, according to the standard or the norm, were totally swapped. And I was at home, changing the diapers and doing all the feeding and coming home and being like, no, you take the baby. I need some breaks. And I found that I actually had a friend. So my cousin, her husband was doing the exact same thing. She worked as a nurse and he worked staying at home with the baby. And so we talk to each other all the time, be like, oh my gosh, I forgot to vacuum. I'll be right back. And it was fun. That's how we kind of worked it out. It was difficult because the dynamic was so different, but we had talked about it so much in advance that we were very prepared for the arrival of a newborn.
That's good. And I love that you guys were flexible in working together to embrace the dynamic that worked best for your family. Because I think a lot of times, especially, I think it's less of an issue now in 2020 than it was in 1983 when my dad had, my youngest sister, right? And so to even imagine my mom going to work and my dad being at home, that was totally foreign to me, in our family. But now it's, couples are finding the creative dynamic so that you're finding fulfillment together. You're finding fulfillment in your careers, and maybe you need to shelf something for a time and then adjust later. And I love that fluidity that I see, today.
Yeah. And you got to take advantage of those talents that you have with each other, right? Because like my wife is obviously better at things than I am in many different areas, and I am better at some things that she's not, and we play to those strengths, right? And I feel I give a lot of thanks to my own parents that I even have the capacity to want to communicate a lot with my wife and be like, hey, like, you're really good at this. You should probably stay working for a while. And she's like, you know what? I am actually really good at this.
I'm really good at changing diapers.
And I'm really good at poop and scooping, like that. That's my thing.
That's funny. So now that you're 2 years into this, is it terrible twos or are they dynamic twos?
I don't. It's definitely getting into terrible twos because the dynamic of like the kid wanting to communicate more because they have the capacity, right? Like you're looking at your child, he can understand most of the things we say, and he is forming a lot of words and trying to form sentences, but a lot of the times he can't get out what he wants truly, and it frustrates him. And it frustrates us. And so it's this horrible, like, just tell me what you want. And he's looking at you like, and so it's been harder these last few actually maybe like month and a half. He's been waking up more cranky. He knows that every day is going to be a little bit more difficult, but he's so much more fun to be outside with. He loves to color. He loves to play with Play-Doh. I mean,
yeah, so he's not a pooping, eating flesh blob anymore. He's actually got personality.
Exactly. He has his own opinions about things, which is the worst and the best. He's fun. He's a bundle of joy now.
So now number 2, what?
It's funny because like, okay, so when because now it's all about plans, right? Like Vanessa and I we like to have everything planned out pretty well. We wanted to have like kids every 2 years, kind of like consecutively for the next 20. I'm just kidding.
Oh gosh.
And so we planned it and we're like, okay, every 2 years spacing that's enough. We can handle that. And so 2 years was coming right up, and we were like, let's go for it again. And she got pregnant pretty quick, and we were like, oh, okay, here it comes, And it's funny because right now I'm like, shoot, I could do that again. That doesn't sound that bad, honestly. Just like a baby, a stationary baby that I only have to feed and change their diaper. Great. Instead of one that I'm worried about nose diving off the couch or trying to walk down like a huge flight of stairs,
Yeah, but now you get to watch the one that's not moving and the one
That's the biggest
diving
problem.
down the stairs, right? You're gonna have one that you're feeding and one that you're trying to catch. And
That's what I'm worried
dynamic.
about. Yeah, I'm like, I hope for somehow that Malachi is like good to us, because he is going to be terrible. I just know it. And as he gets older, he's going to want to be more mobile. And so, yeah, trying to find that balance where you can save one life and just keep the other one safe.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I found was going from 1 to 2 was a crazy dynamic, but going from 2 to 3, that's like, yeah, what's another
really?
one, right? But that 1 to 2 leap, that was a big difference, right? Because you don't expect how different the second one is going to be from the first one.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've talked about that, like the personality of the second one is not going to be the same as the first one either. So, I mean, like their likes and dislikes will be different. Oh boy.
we're going to have a follow-up one about 6 months after you have the second one and go, how's it going?
Yeah. Are you allowed? I'll have the bags under my eyes. If I kind of already do.
That's okay. That just comes with fatherhood.
Yep. It's the staple.
Yeah, you just need to have a diaper on your one shoulder and a catcher's mitt on the other, and you're good to go. So
that's why older dads wear fanny packs, right? Like that's the thing.
Not this older dad. There's no way I'm wearing a fanny pack.
I've considered it. I was like, that's actually not that bad. You have your diaper, your bottle, but then I was like, what am I thinking?
You're getting old, dude.
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not, and it's like I didn't even go to the minivan. I'm not going minivan. I'm going suburban, right?
Yes,
like,
you already skipped that.
Some of my manhood. And I know that's stereotypical, but it's just like I don't want the minivan, and I don't want morale. The fanny pack.
Yep. So. That's awesome, Jody. You're so cool. You're way cooler than me.
I'm just trying to stay young. It's like this year my theme song's Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55, because I'm hitting double nickels this year.
Oh, snap.
So every day it's like, I can't drive 55. So yeah, every time I go to the gym, which I can't do anymore, it's I have Sammy Hagar playing in my headset, so
that's
cool.
Great.
So no, it's fun. So how's the dynamic of the coronavirus affected you guys at home?
Man, this whole thing has been nuts, dude. And it's funny because I've talked about this a couple times already on a couple other podcasts where they were interviewing me, and we were talking about just the effects that coronavirus has in general. And I tell people, like, man, maybe physically this thing will probably be affecting us for somewhat between now and a year, right? Like hopefully we find a vaccine. Hopefully everything is like okay within a year, right? That the death rate is going down. But this is something that's going to affect us mentally for another 7-10 years. I mean, no one's going to forget about this. This is
it's interesting.
A big thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw a really cool TikTok yesterday. And this guy was talking about, he goes, when you talk to your 10-year-old kid in 20 years about Corona, what's he going to remember? You're going to remember that you had to come home, that you couldn't go out and buy groceries. He's going to remember, I got to come home and go to school. I got my dad helping me with school. I got to go out in the backyard and play catch with my dad, that he was always too busy working all the time. And, he's going to look at it as a positive memory because he was younger and he's reaping the benefits of having mom and dad home. And maybe that's not all the cases in a lot of families, but even in my home, Judie's working upstairs. She works for Alaska in our bedroom
Love
office.
it.
I work downstairs, and Jessica came home from school, and she texted me, "Dad, are you off a meeting? Can we do homework together?" And so about 3 times a
Wow.
day now, I'm sitting side by side with Jessica, helping her with homework. And it's so far it's been going really well, except for one English assignment that's just got major and minor themes, and it's like, ah!
Yeah, no, don't get me in the details, keep it basic. But I totally think it's crazy because obviously COVID is a horrible thing and people are experiencing and suffering in so many different ways. But if you look at the positive aspect, man, people are going and being forced to be with their families, and that's kind of a either good or bad thing.
Isn't that ironic that you said forced to be with your family?
Yeah.
I mean, we should want to, right? And the
Yes.
nice thing prior to COVID-19 is, our family, Judy and I, always had date night. We always once a week did something as a family. On Sundays, we would go to church together, but then we would have worship time home. And so it's been really interesting because now you just have worship at home because you can't go to church. And so I think it's been a really unique, really, it's really opened to my eyes of how much we really should be engaged with our family instead of being forced to.
Yes.
But it also has been, really challenging because we're very outgoing people.
There's no escape.
We can't just go to the mall. We can't, we're thinking about every little thing. The kids go, "Can I go see this friend?" Well, you probably shouldn't. And, and so like last night, Jessica said, "We're going to go do a social distancing thing that we saw on TikTok." So they all drove together and met at a parking lot, and they put their cars in a circle.
I saw this.
And then sat on their hoods and visited together. I'm like, that's so great, because one of the things is, we talk about social distancing, and I hate that word. It's like, we don't need to social distance. We need to physical distance.
Yep.
But we need that social connection. And so what it's forced us to do is find creative ways to socially connect with each other and embrace each other in ways that maybe we've neglected in the past.
I totally agree with that. And I think it's obviously there's so many positives from being at home. And I'm one of the lucky few people where my work I can do from home. So I still have a job. And now I just get to spend excuse me, 1 second.
It's COVID.
Oh my gosh, I choked on my saliva halfway through. I was getting so excited. COVID. Oh my gosh. Too soon? Right?
I just, well, and we actually had a conversation about that a couple weeks ago when it first started, because our family, one of the ways that we cope with things is just laughing and making fun of things, right? And it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's not meant to be demeaning, but it's our release valve. Right.
Yes.
And so we actually had to have a talk about that and go, because one of the kids was like, maybe we're being a little insensitive. And I'm like, well, you know what? We're in our family. It's not like we're doing it to the neighbor that we're going to talk to. I think there's a balance, right? And so that was a good discussion, because we were able to talk about, how we as a family are coping with things and how we need to be sensitive of other people and be considerate of them and their feelings. And so that's been a great opportunity as well.
I just love being able to be home with my family. I think this will hopefully change the way our business looks at people working from home in general. I think that a lot of businesses are pivoting and realizing what they can do now, what's available to them. But being at home with my wife and my son, it's kind of like, wow, this is surreal. This is kind of the dream for us, honestly. Like, I could be at home, I could be there while I'm doing things that'll allow us to, sustain ourselves. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
So being a young dad, about ready to become a more seasoned dad with 2 kids, now, what are some tips that you would give a young dad?
It's this is so one of the things I have so many opinions on this just because I worked a lot in the mental health field. I worked a few years actually. So I was in a mental health hospital. Obviously, when I was in nursing school, I did tons of clinicals in different types of hospitals. Um, and I've seen so much youth suffer from mental illness and harsh mental illnesses at that. I mean, we're talking things worse than fetal alcohol syndrome. Um, and while I was in this mental health hospital in Bountiful here in Utah, it was a lockdown facility. It's for mentally ill teenage delinquents. I mean, like these kids are like I got my nose broke first week I was there, and they make shiz and they stabbed my coworker in the ear and got a piece of his ear off. And it's crazy stuff. I have stories, I could share for hours. But the one thing the one thing that was the most important thing for these kids was their family dynamic. I mean, we would keep them there for a year, 2 years, and we would see huge progress. But as soon as we released them to go home, they would go right back to where they were at the beginning. Everything has to do with what you're doing. The success rate is less than 5%.
Wow.
And that statistic is horrible. It's mind blowing. And my biggest thing is like, man, so much can be done with a mother and father present. And so for a new dad, when you're thinking about having a kid or you have a kid on the way, be present. Man, now you have a responsibility, and a lot of their life is going to end up the way that you raised them. And you're going to have a huge effect on this human, for better, for worse. And that's a lot up to you. So be present. When you're at home, be at home, be with your kid, have fun. Even if your kid wants to do the same thing for an hour, like one thing my kid wants to do all the time when he goes outside, all he wants to do is climb up and down the stairs. That's all he wants to do, man, for an hour. It's so horrible. But I think when I'm doing it, I always have this weird like moment of awakening, I guess, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like he needs this, he wants this. So like I have to be there for him. I can't just bring him in when I want to be in. So I'm going to push my limits today for my son. And I know one day, maybe not for a long time, but maybe one day he'll appreciate the fact that I did that for him,
I love that. I think that's the quote of the day. I'm going to push my limits for my son. I love that because I think that's a great quote, because I think a lot of times, especially I remember going to the playground with my kids, and, I would be watching the clock.
Yeah.
I would be watching the clock. All right, we've been here for an hour. Yeah, that's good enough. And, rushing off to something that really wasn't that important, but it was on my to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going, you know what, I'm going to push my own limits, and I'm going to embrace this time. I'm going to let them run in the playground. In fact, I remember one time we were we were at the beach, and our family loves the beach, right? And it was getting kind of towards the end of the day, and I was watching the clock, and Judie's like, you know what, let's just forget that. Let's just spend the rest of the evening here. And we still talk about that evening. We end up getting a little stack of wood and making a fire on the beach, and got some hot dogs. And what was a great day ended up being a phenomenal day because I forgot the watch.
That's crazy. Isn't that how impactful can it be just to spend an extra 10, 20 minutes doing something for your family or with your family or being more present? Because now you're saying you still talk about those moments. I have moments like that with my family growing up. And when we gather and we convene or whatever, we like to talk about those memories, because it's like, man, those were awesome. Why were they so awesome? Because we took the time to be with each other, and it's crazy how powerful that can be, to the human mind, even to where we don't want to forget about those moments.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your morning to visit with me. It's like, oh yeah, let's do our little Corona dance.
Hey.
We can go do TikTok together.
That would be awesome. No, thank you for having me. Honestly, I feel like obviously I'm a super young dad. There's so much for me to learn. I just can't wait. I love the Father's Fire, because I can look there and see other fathers who are also giving pieces of their experience out. And I really do think we're all in this together, you know, to help each other, to bolster each other up. So this is awesome what you're doing. Thank you for having me on the show, dude.
No, well, thanks for being my guest. And you guys that are listening, thank you for joining me every week as we explore this fun thing called fatherhood. Some days are really, really challenging and you don't always have the answers. But you know what? You just stay committed. You push your limits for your kids and for your family, and you become the father that they're hoping to be and the man that you want to be. And I tell you, when you make those little investments in your family, it makes a huge difference. So thank you guys for joining me. I also want to invite you guys to my personal private Facebook group. It's called Father's Fire. Surprise. It's a place where once a week we do a men's meetup. We talk about a theme for the week, and we just have a man-to-man discussion in an environment that's safe, that's private, and where we can really explore how we can be the best fathers possible. So I would love to have you join us. That's out at Facebook, Father's Fire. And we will catch you same time, same bat channel right here on Father's Fire next week. See ya.